Tonight I want to talk about my house burning down. That's something that has been just shy of 6 months ago. We had our house burned completely to the ground. So there we were. It was a Sunday night. Our Sunday night tradition is to watch AFV, and there was smoke in the air. Now, I know a lot of you would say, hold up, there's smoke in the air, your house is on fire, go do something about it. But when you have a wood-burning stove in Alaska, and when you change the wood out and put new wood in, it's gonna smell like smoke in the house. And so that's kind of a normal thing, at least for a minute or two. We have a wood-burning stove. It's called a Blaze King. It's a very, very efficient stove. You gotta be careful with them. You gotta take really good care to maintain. You have to keep the stack clean all the time, and you have to make sure the wood that you're burning is very, very dry. A lot of people hear the story of how our house burned down. They know that we are relatively new to Alaska, and it's easy to just assume, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't as good with their maintenance as they should have been, or were burning the wrong kind of wood, or this and that. And that's actually not what happened at all. Our landlord, he's been Alaskan forever. He's been here a really long time, and he was the one that maintained that for us. He cleaned the stack 3 times a year, and he did a fantastic job. And the wood that we burned, we'd let it dry for 2 years. So it was efficient burning wood. That's something that's not only better for your safety and better for making heat, it's also better for the environment to let the wood dry out before you burn it. And so we had done everything just right, but sometimes chimney fires can just happen. And when we speak to our Alaskan friends and say it was a chimney fire, the chimney caught on fire, everybody gets it. That's something that's relatively common. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. People know what it is. Our friends and family that aren't in Alaska, when we tell people we had a chimney fire, they don't know what that means. And so I will tell you, it's when the chimney catches on fire. So our landlord is a contractor, and he has a very large shop. And most of the house actually from the outside, it looks magnificent. It looks like we're really rich. It's like we have an enormous house. But disguised in the plan of that house is his shop. By volume, most of that building is actually a shop that looks like a really nice house. It's just got a few living areas, the one above the garage, and then one off to the left side. And so that's where we were. We were in the living area above the garage and just watching AFV. So we put new wood in, we went and had dinner, and then watching AFV, and it smelled smoke. And my dad had called just to chat. He usually checks in on me Sunday nights. And we've been talking for a little while, and then it just kind of occurred to me. I thought, you know what? That smoky smell from the changing the wood out of the fire, it should have dissipated by now. It should have gone away, and it hadn't. So I said, hang on, I'm gonna go check on that. The closer I got to it, the more I realized something is definitely not right here. Something's not okay. I began hearing just this odd plinking noise, and it was almost as though somebody were throwing pea gravel onto the ceiling. You know, just on the other side of the sheetrock above me, just this little plink, 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 plink at about that rate. And it was just weird. It was a sound I couldn't quite place. I didn't know what was going on. I found out later what was happening was the snow that was on our roof was melting. And it was melting and getting into that in-between area between the ceiling and the roof. And I didn't even realize I've been living in that house for... They're at it again. I had been living in that house for 2 years. I didn't realize there was about a 5-foot space between the ceiling and the roof in that location. And so the drops of water, they had enough distance to get some momentum and make kind of a loud little plinking sound. And between the sound and the smell, I knew something wasn't right. So I told my dad, I'm gonna call you right back. I gotta figure out what's going on. I hung up, got off the phone. As soon as I got off the phone, I went outside the garage door, and I looked outside, and I could see, you know how when you make homemade root beer, or when you see dry ice, you see that water vapor just kind of foaming, overflowing out of the container and just going everywhere? That's what my roof looked like. So I stepped outside the garage door. It was like my house was a great big vat of homemade root beer, and that steamy, foamy, foggy mix was just coming off of the roof everywhere. And it wasn't smoke, and it wasn't really... It was water vapor. It was just flowing everywhere. It didn't look right. The fireplace and the chimney was kind of in the back corner. I ran back as fast as I could. I looked through the perforations in the soffit, and I see just this glowing... It almost looked like the size of a basketball. The color of a basketball was orange and glowing. It wasn't actually flickering flames at this point. And so in my mind, instead of thinking, oh no, my house is on fire, I thought, oh no, this is bad, my house could catch on fire. It just, to me, looked like that metal, the stack that the chimney was in, was very, very hot, obviously, but it hadn't breached the outside of that. So I didn't call 911 just yet, which looking back I should have, and obviously hearing the story and not being there for yourself, it's obvious to say, yeah, you should have. But being in my shoes at that place at that time, I thought my house is about to catch on fire. The first thought I had was to run to my neighbor's house, who was also my landlord. He'd been in Alaska for a very long time, and he lived in that house before I lived in that house. And my mind just went to the place where I thought, okay, he's gonna know what to do. Ran as fast as I had in years and just pounded on his front door. And looking through his windows, I thought, okay, if anyone's here, if he's home, someone's gonna move, because I'm pounding like a maniac. And then I paused and I listened, nothing. So I knew, okay, he's not home. So from his doorstep, I called 911. And while I had 911 on the phone, I was running back as fast as I could to go grab the extinguisher. I sprayed the fire in the wood-burning stove with the fire extinguisher, so we put that fire out, and I let her know I was going to run around to the outside and go up the ladder and spray it directly into the chimney. And she told me not to. She said the only thing you need to do right now, and the only thing you should do right now, is get everybody out of the house. Now, at the time, I thought, I don't think that's a good idea, because I think it's still small enough that I can do it. What I didn't realize is the fire was already well underway where I couldn't see it. It was blazing between the ceiling and the roof, and it was in all of the walls. Alaska gets very, very cold, and we have very, very warm insulation. And the insulation that we have is great at being insulation and at keeping us warm, but it's also very flammable. So that fire took off where we couldn't see it. And so looking back, that was definitely the right move, and that was the right call for her to tell me, don't risk your life, don't waste your time trying to do that yourself. Replayed that in my mind so many times. It would be nice if I could go back and try it again and just see if that would have made a difference. It's not something I'd be willing to bet my life on, because I think that fire was already going pretty good, just where we couldn't see it. So I went back inside, and my wife, hearing all the commotion of me running around and talking to the dispatch, where they were by the TV, they could start to hear that plinking sound for themselves. So she knew something was wrong, and they were coming down the stairs from above the garage. I've heard it said before, you should never yell at your children, because if you yell at them all the time, when you really need their attention, they will ignore you. In this moment, this was a we need to get out of the house moment. I raised my voice and I yelled and I said, kids, get shoes on and get out of the house. You know, I just didn't want them to think that this was a time to go grab a stuffed animal or to do anything other than leave the house. So they got their boots on and we went outside. I told my wife to go get the key from where we keep the keys so that she could let herself into our neighbor's garage and the kids could stay there while I ran down the road to go meet the fire trucks and tell them where to go. One thing to keep in mind, it was 25 degrees below zero at the time, and that's just for up here. Honestly, that's a, oh, by the way, kind of a thing. That's not unusual for our winters, and so it's not something where you can just kind of chill and hang out outside for very long before it becomes very dangerous and very deadly. The kids, I had rattled them so much when I yelled at them and got their attention that they kind of freaked out, and my adorable, precious, wonderful, beautiful, perfect little daughter, who's 5, was so scared and frightened by me raising my voice that she just lost her composure and she put on whatever boots were closest to her, which one of them belongs to her, but the other one belongs to my wife. And so she had mismatched boots, which at the time, you know, for saving your own life and standing outside, that's not a big deal, but the next day was just a pain because she couldn't go anywhere. She had to be carried everywhere. It was 20 degrees below zero the entire next day, and man, that was something. Looking back, if there's one little thing we could have done, well, there's a lot of things we would have done differently, but that's one where we would have been like, get the right shoe on just so she could walk by herself and not have to be carried everywhere. Anyway, they went over and they let themselves in to the neighbor's house. If every second counts, and I'm just gonna, there's not really a lot I can do at this point in time, but one thing I can do is run down the street and make sure the fire truck knows exactly where to go. Maybe that'll get them there a minute earlier, you know, if they otherwise would have taken a wrong turn. So I started running to the intersection